The night my aunt accused me of sleeping with her husband, the house smelled like fried okra and burning dust from a heater that hadn't run since March. Thunder bruised the sky over Decatur. The gutters gargled red clay and leaves. I was rinsing collards when Aunt Renee came in with her phone raised like a warrant. "Explain this," she said. On her cracked screen, a photo glowed. Me on the back steps, head tilted, laughing. Uncle Warren leaning too close, his hand caught mid-gesture near my shoulder. A frame stolen from a longer thing that didn't look like a joke once it was trimmed to the bone. "It's the camera by the shed," she said. "The timestamps last Thursday, when I was at choir practice and you were studying. You've been studying my husband." Grease hissed in the skillet. The lid on the pot rattled like it wanted out. My tongue stuck to my teeth, cotton dry. "Renee," I said, because I never called her aunt when she was a storm. "That's not... He came out to ask about the hose. Liar," she said, with a satisfaction that had nothing to do with truth. "I knew you were trouble the day you set that suitcase down." Warren stood in the doorway with his hands tucked in his pockets like a man attending his own trial with snacks. He wore that aftershave that could cut through church air and barbecue smoke, bright and spicy with a sour ending. He raised his eyebrows at me, barely there, a mosquito of a gesture, like, "Well?" My fingers pruned under the tap. The water ran too cold. Outside, lightning stitched the dark together. I heard the neighbors' wind chimes clatter like an argument. I felt the house tilt 1 degree toward a cliff I hadn't seen. "Say something," she said. But she meant, "Say the thing I want." I turned off the faucet, wiped my hands on a towel that smelled like old lemon, and looked at the man whose compliments always slid under doors. "Smart girl, pretty head on your shoulders," as if he'd lost his key. "Warren," I said, steady, "tell her the truth." He smiled, rueful. "Practiced." "Baby," he said to Renee, not me, "you know Kayana's like a daughter. Don't do this." He threw me the line and the weight in the same motion. Renee's eyes glassed. She clutched the phone like a weapon she wasn't sure how to use without cutting herself. And that was the moment I understood I had been living in a house built on a lie none of us wanted to name. If you're the only one who didn't pour the gasoline, how do you prove you didn't strike the match?
I am Kiana Brooks, 26, a middle school counselor by day and a woman who counts coupons by night. I moved into my aunt's ranch house off Columbia Drive last summer after my mom's heart decided to sputter and then stop. A quiet betrayal in a quiet apartment. The lease ended. Grief doesn't. Aunt Renee is my mother's older sister. Where Mom simmered, Renee boiled. Loud laugh, gold hoops, a way of hugging that creaked your ribs and also checked your pockets. She runs the church pantry, knows everybody's business, and wears her insults like perfume, noticeable but deniable. "You should eat," she'd say after the funeral. "You're getting that long face like your mama used to when she was down to change." Uncle Warren is smooth as a storefront window. He sells roofs and home solutions, which in Atlanta can mean anything from replacing shingles to replacing your peace. He volunteers on the security ministry at church and believes in eye contact like a sport. When I arrived with my 2 suitcases and a box of Tupperware that still smelled like my mother's chicken, he lifted my luggage with one hand and told me it was no trouble at all. Family is family. That first week, Renee cried at the sink and Warren patted her back, and I learned where the light switch by the back door sticks if you don't slap it just right. I took the tiny spare room with the faux brass lamp and the quilt Renee's friend Dolores had sewn from old uniforms. It felt like sleeping under all the jobs I'd ever had. The ceiling fan ticked in a way that sounded like someone counting. I liked the neighborhood's noises. The MARTA breaks down the hill, kids on bikes calling back and forth like birds, Miss Evelyn's radio drifting Al Green across fences. At Fulton Oaks Middle, my office smelled like dry erase marker and peppermint. I kept a bowl of Dum-Dums on my desk and a box of tissues on the file cabinet. The kids told me things with eyes that skittered and hands that picked at sleeves. I can't sleep. My stepdad is loud. I don't know why I'm mad all the time. I believed them even when I suspected they were practicing for a life where adults will not. Believing is a muscle. If you don't use it, it turns to something else. Renee made rules. Wash your dishes, don't leave laundry in the machine overnight, text me if you won't be home by 10 because I'm a worrier. Warren made suggestions. Don't park under the magnolia, sap will ruin your paint. Keep your blinds tilted up so folks can't look in. I can teach you about Roth IRAs if you want. He filled the threshold of my room with his advice like weather. We had our Sundays. Church, Renee's greens, Warren's ribs, my attempt at cornbread that always needed rescue. We had our weeknights. Reruns, the hum of the dishwasher, the scratch of Renee's pen as she balanced her checkbook, even though the app would do it. We were a small machine. We squeaked, but we ran. Then Warren started noticing me out loud. You're not like these girls, he'd say, as if my adulthood were a private arrangement between us. You got sense. Your mama raised you right. His compliments greased the hinges of a door I never agreed to open. He'd bump my shoulder, playful, stand one step too close, friendly, block the drawer down by accident. I'd sidestep, smile thin, say, "Excuse me," like a spell I hoped would work, even if I was the only witch. I told myself, he's a flirter. He's a man in a midlife crisis. He's meeting nothing but heat and noise. I told myself, Renee would take me in a storm and I won't repay her with trouble. I did not tell Renee. How do you hand a woman you love a fact shaped like a grenade? But the house learned my flinch. And houses talk. How long can you pretend a draft is just the air and not a window you didn't open? It started, officially, with a hand on a jar. Last Thursday, I was in the pantry reaching for the sugar when Warren stepped in behind me, his chest a wall I hadn't ordered. The hallway light had burned out. The pantry bulb is the kind that makes everything look like it's underwater. He reached past me for the mason jar of rice, unnecessary, theatrical, and his forearm brushed my shoulder. He didn't move back. You still looking to get your own place? He asked, voice soft, warm with something I didn't want. Saving, I said, steady. Market's not friendly. I could help, he said. Put in a word with a landlord I know, cut through some requirements. Renee's got a cousin with a place. We're talking next month. He clicked his tongue, a tiny scold. Renee makes a lot of plans she doesn't keep. I shifted sideways, a sliding puzzle. I need to cook, I said. He leaned back then, just enough to make his withdrawal feel like charity. You know, you brighten this house. Turn on more lamps, I said, and carried the sugar like a shield. That night, I took the trash to the curb. When I came back up the steps, Warren was in the doorway with his phone angled away from his body. It took me a beat to realize he was using the glass storm door as a mirror. It took me another to understand he was recording the reflection. He stepped aside when I reached the top, smiling. The camera caught a raccoon last night. Maybe it'll catch our thief again. What thief? I asked. Somebody's been stealing time, and he laughed. I went to my room and closed the door with quiet hands. The fan ticked. My mother's photo on the dresser watched me in that kind way that makes you want to be better than your fear. I texted my friend Marley, "You know a good locksmith? I need a chain." She answered with a skull emoji and then a name. The next morning, Renee made pancakes and hummed Blessed Assurance. She kissed the top of my head when I reached for syrup. "You're a good girl," she said, and I swallowed my confession with my coffee. That evening, the storm came. That evening, Renee found the clip. That evening, my life in that house slid towards an edge. When someone builds a story with just enough wood to look like a bridge, do you step on it to prove it won't hold? Renee didn't sleep that night. I could hear her slippers whispering down the hall, hear drawers open and close with the politeness of a tired argument. I lay in bed and counted the fan ticks like a metronome set for panic. Morning brought church clothes and silence. Warren hummed low as he tied his tie. Renee buttered toast with surgical calm. I moved like a visiting nurse in a room where someone had just died and everyone was pretending it was a nap. In the pew, Renee's shoulders stiffened every time Warren touched the small of her back. After the benediction, Sister Clarice whispered to Renee and glanced at me with a curiosity that felt like a draft under the door. The choir loft smelled like perfume and old hymnals. Pastor preached on bearing false witness. I watched Warren nod at the right times. Back home, Renee called me into the living room. The curtains were open. The day tried to be generous. "Tell me every time you've been alone with my husband," she said. "Renee, I have not." "Every time," she snapped. "Even if nothing happened. Especially if nothing happened." So I told her. The pantry, the back steps, that time he blocked the drawer with his hip and called it a joke, the advice in my doorway about credit scores. I said the words like I was reading labels off medicine bottles. I kept my voice low. Panic makes mine high, and high sounds guilty even when it isn't. Renee listened, arms folded, mouth a thin line. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked finally. "Because I didn't want to set your house on fire." I did not say. "Because I have been a girl in rooms with men and I know how fast a no becomes an argument about a woman's tone. Because you loved me enough to find a space for my grief and I didn't want to repay you with a riddle you'd have to solve with your marriage." "I didn't know how," I said. "I was trying to keep the peace long enough to get my own place." Warren appeared in the hallway like a commercial for himself. "Ladies," he said, hands up, "this is getting messy. Renee, you know I would never. Kiana, you know what you're doing to this family." He made my honesty into vandalism and set it at my feet. Something in Renee cracked then. Not belief, not yet, but the shell around it. "Show me your phone," she said to him. He frowned, wounded. "My phone? Renee, I'm not living like that." "Then move," she said low. He handed it over with a sigh designed to make us apologize. Renee scrolled, thumb fast, eyes faster. She found nothing, because of course you don't keep matches in the nursery. She tossed the phone back. It landed on the couch with a soft thud that felt like a verdict. "Y'all want me gone," Warren said. "A martyr audition. Say it." Renee's chin lifted. "Go for a drive. Come back when I call." When the door latched, she sat. The couch released air like a tired old thing relieved of weight. She rubbed her forehead with 3 fingers like she could erase the last 24 hours if she pressed hard enough. "I'm not saying I believe you. I'm saying I hear you." It wasn't a victory. It was a crack big enough to let light through if I pushed. "Renee," I said gently, "we could check the backyard camera ourselves. Not the clip he sent you. The file, the whole thing." Her eyes sharpened. Renee has a practical brain under all that thunder. "You know how?" "I can try," I said. "I worked in the tech office at school last year. It's not surgery." We went out together, the air wet and warm as bread. The security box by the soffit hummed. Renee unlocked the panel and I plugged in my laptop. The footage spilled across the screen in silent gray time. We scrolled to Thursday night. The clip that had burned a hole in the house lived in a folder labeled Motion. We watched the uncut version. Warren stepped into frame first, phone at his side, screen turned inward, not outward toward the yard like a man checking the weather. He stood on the top step, like a fisherman figuring out where the fish might be. I entered with the trash bag, tied it, hauled it down. He said something. I turned. He took a half step toward me, too close, familiar in a way that had never been earned. I laughed the way women laugh when they don't want to cry or fight or crumble. He leaned. The camera caught the angle that looked like a kiss only if he wanted it to. "What did he say right there?" Renee asked. I shook my head. No audio. She watched again. Thunder rolled somewhere that might have been the memory itself. My hands remembered the heft of the trash bag. We scrubbed forward. 5 minutes later, after I had gone inside, Warren remained on the step, angling his phone at the door's reflection. He reviewed something, smiled, and adjusted like a man learning his own lighting. Renee, very still. "That piece of work," she said, and the pause before peace was a whole life. "If the camera is the truth and the edit is the lie, which one do you believe when a marriage is the audience?"
We thought we had our answer. We didn't. Renee called Deacon Harold, who knows everyone with a ladder and a strong opinion, and asked for the contact who installed their system. A man named Quincy came by in a van that looked like it sold both Wi-Fi and hope. He logged into the cloud account Warren had set up and frowned. Some files got exported, that's normal. What's not is the way the permissions changed. Somebody made a second admin profile last month. See that? He pointed with a bitten nail. Name's Household 2. Warren, Renee and I said together. He clicked, typed, nodded. Also, he added, there's another camera on the network that's not showing in the app. Renee blanked. Another where? He pulled up the device list. Shed west, back door, driveway, den frame. The hair on my arms stood up so fast it hurt. Den frame? I said. Quincy smiled the smile of a man used to bad surprises. Sometimes folks hide little cameras in clocks, frames, smoke detectors. They sell them online. You want me to sweep? Renee's face flushed high. She said, find it. He did in 3 minutes flat. A neat, modern picture frame on the den bookshelf, the one with the photo of all of us on Easter in front of the azaleas. The glass held 2 faces, our posed smiles then and a bubble lens that had been watching since. He unplugged it, a tiny red light died. Been recording motion events for about 6 weeks. Looks like it backs up to a different cloud. Renee steadied herself with a hand on the mantel. The den smelled like furniture polish and the lemon candles she lit when company came. She didn't cry. Renee saves tears for kitchens and funerals. She went quiet in a way that felt like a room holding its breath before a shout. Send me the logs. All of them. He nodded. You might want the police. Renee looked at me. I saw the battle in her eyes between the man she'd promised and the girl she'd been before promising anyone. Not yet, she said. Family first. I wanted to argue. I also wanted to be gentle with a woman whose floor had just opened. Okay, I said. Tonight we talk. Us 3. No shouting. Renee laughed sharp. Baby, there will be shouting. When Warren came home, he smelled like rain and showroom, ozone and new carpet. Renee was at the table with the frame, the printed logs, and a plate of untouched pound cake. I sat across, palms flat, an anchor only I could feel. Explain, she said, and slid the frame toward him like a check. Warren looked at it, blinked, looked at her, at me, back at it. He said, people put cameras in their houses all the time. Crime's up. In the picture frame, Warren, and she said, too sweet, looking at my den, looking at my niece. He opened his hands, a pastor about to pray. Let's not turn this into, this is already turned, and you did the turning. His face changed then, subtle, like clouds rearranging. You snooped in my system, he said to me. That's illegal. It's our system, Renee shot back. He chose a different tact. Kiana, you know I care about you. You know I want the best for you. Ask yourself why you're trying to ruin this house. He tried to throw me the weight again. I didn't catch it. Ask yourself why you need cameras to run your marriage. For a second, he let the mask drop. He looked at me with something like fury and something like surprise, like a man who has leaned on a door expecting it to swing and found it locked.
Then he smiled slow. "You two think you're on the same side," he said. "Wait. If a man can't make you doubt your eyes, he'll try to make you doubt your alliances. Which breaks first?"
The house chose sides in little ways. Renee put the frame in a shoebox on the highest pantry shelf and wrote, "Do not touch" in Sharpie, like labeling would make the threat behave. Warren started sleeping in the den, so I don't keep nobody up with my snoring, though he'd never snored a day I'd known him. I heard the couch springs argue with his weight, heard the low blue glow of the TV at 3 a.m., heard the front door open in the afternoons when a quote took longer than a quote should. At school, the 8th graders asked why adults lie. I told them because we're scared. The air in my office tasted like metal. I sucked peppermints to cover it. Marley said I should move out now, take the futon in her living room. My bank account said, finish the month. 2 days later, Renee's friend Dolores came by with pound cake and news. "Sister, I hate to be the one," she said to Renee, sitting at the table like a reporter, "but I seen Warren at Ponce last week with some woman, not you. They were looking at faucets like they paying for water with kisses." Renee's mouth did that tilt it does when she's deciding whether to swing or laugh. She said, "Describe her," not because she needed more pain, but because names make things real. "Tall," Dolores said, "and sad in the way of women who think this is how joy is bought." After Dolores laughed, Renee sat very still, then stood very fast. She pulled the shoebox from the pantry and set it on the table, with the frame and the logs and the printout Quincy had sent. The room smelled like lemon and what you smell when the lemon burns. "I've been a fool," she said, and the word "been" had years inside it. "Renee," I said, "we can take this to the police." "Not yet," she said again, but softer. "Give me till Friday." "Why?" "Because Friday is his bowling night," she said, and for the first time in days, a tiny, ruthless smile cut through. "And I ain't a ball in that alley that can knock down what I'm about to." That afternoon, I changed my bedroom chain to a brand with teeth. That evening, Warren knocked and asked why the door was locked at 6 o'clock, like I owed him a schedule. "Boundaries," I said through the wood. He chuckled. "Girls get ideas when they start paying 2 bills. I pay 3, and I'm a woman." He left. He texted, "We cool?" The bubble hung like a fishing lure. I did not bite. On Friday, Renee borrowed Quincy's baby camera detector and swept the house herself, muttering scripture like a spell. She found 2 more, one in the kitchen clock, one in the hall smoke alarm. She put them in the shoebox and wrote "evidence" on the lid. At 6, Warren ironed a shirt and kissed the air beside Renee's cheek. "Lucky tonight," she said. "Luck's for people without plans." When the door closed, she turned to me. "Grab your shoes." We drove to Lucky Strike on Midtown, where the air tastes like spilled beer and old laughter. We didn't go in. We parked across the street and watched Warren meet not a woman, but a man, Tate, his business partner, with a folder that bulged like a wallet on payday. Money? Contracts? I could taste the shape of something I didn't understand yet. Renee filmed on her phone with the steady hands of a woman who has iced cakes in heat waves. She said, "I thought he was cheating on me," she said, flat. "But it's bigger." On the way home, she told me the thing she hadn't told me, because pain borrows the mouth and won't give it back. 2 months earlier, Warren had asked her to sign some loan updates for the house. Refi, he said. Nothing big. She signed, distracted, trusting, not reading the page. After the page, a letter arrived last week. The line of credit on the house had been drawn down, a polite phrase for emptied. She thought it was a mistake. She did not want to make it not one by saying it out loud. He put the house in the casino and used me for chips. The click in my brain was loud enough to feel. The cameras, the controlling, the frame, the fake flirt story. If you call a woman unfaithful loudly enough, no one asks why your pockets jingle when you walk. "We're calling the bank tomorrow," I said. And a lawyer, she added. And the police. She exhaled. And the police. We slept like women who had sharpened something. Saturday morning smelled like bacon and the inside of an envelope. We went to the bank where the free coffee tastes like a dare. The teller pulled up the account and then went very polite, which is how people act when they think a crime is a family matter. The manager suggested taking it up with the primary signer. I am the primary, Renee said, and the room bent a little. We left with copies and a new file folder and the manager's card with his handwriting shaking all over it. Back home, Renee laid everything on the table like she was dressing a wound. The lemon candle burned down to a stub. At noon, Warren came in early, not bowling happy, but watchful, tugging at the collar of a lie that didn't fit. "What's all this?" he asked. "Truth," Renee said. "Have a seat." He chose to stand, hands on hips, body tilted toward me, like blame has a gravity of its own. Renee pushed the frame across the table, then the camera logs, then the bank papers. She spoke in a voice I'd only heard when she told the neighborhood boys to leave Miss Evelyn's magnolia alone. Tall, final. She asked, "Do you deny any of this?" Warren laughed. Not funny, not free. He said, "I deny your interpretation. I deny the way you always turn my effort into suspicion." Renee didn't blink. She said, "I'm turning your theft into a report and your perversion into a case." He straightened, dropped the charm. He said, "You ain't calling nobody." And the ain't was a weapon. Renee lifted her phone and pressed a button. Already did.
When a bully realizes the room is not his, what does he break first? The furniture or the silence?
The police arrived 20 minutes later, 2 officers who smelled like wet wool in the long day of other people's messes. They listened, they looked, they took the shoebox, the printouts, the den frame like a trophy from a hunt no one wanted to go on. They issued Warren a trespass warning that made our living room feel like a courtroom. "You can stay tonight," one officer told Renee, "but if he comes back and refuses to leave, call us." When they left, the house was bigger than it had been. The quiet had room to run. Renee sat, hands wrapped around her elbows. "You don't have to stay here," she said. "I can put you at Dolores's." "I'm not leaving you," I said. "You're not responsible for me," she said. And it was both tender and late. "I'm choosing," I said. "That's different." We set our alarms like women camping where bears were known to stroll. We slid a chair under the back doorknob. We put the car keys by the fruit bowl. We slept in our clothes because dignity is a luxury on nights like that. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You really want to ruin her life for a misunderstanding?" I stared at the bubble until the screen dimmed. I typed back, "Don't text this number again." "He's scared," I told Renee's darkness. "Good." Once you commit to the hard road, how do you keep walking when the gravel starts to talk? On Monday, a woman called. "This is Sergeant Hall," she said, voice even as a level. "We've reviewed the preliminary evidence. We'll need statements. And Ms. Renee, you should contact a civil attorney about the line of credit." We did. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and new printers. Ms. Patel wore a navy suit and a face that said she had delivered hard news to people who survived it. She read. She nodded. She asked questions that felt like stitches. "Your husband likely used a PAO, power of attorney, you signed years ago as part of mortgage paperwork," she said to Renee. "He might have modified it. We'll challenge the bank's diligence. As for the cameras, that's criminal. And there's also the matter of," she looked at me gently, "harassment." The word was a balm that also stung. Naming is like that. 2 days later, Deacon Harold texted Renee a clip from the church festival camera. Warren speaking with Tate and another man I didn't know, Mr. Lewis, a contractor with a reputation for fast work and faster invoices. Money changed hands. The envelope was thick enough to change a posture. The timestamp? One of Warren's choir nights. Renee enlarged the video on her iPad till the pixels looked like a quilt of doubt. She said to me, "This isn't about you," voice thin with relief and fresh anger. The second twist wasn't that I had been accused to hide his wandering eye. It was that I had been accused to hide his wandering hands in our accounts. I wasn't the prize or the temptation. I was the smokescreen. I felt a ridiculous stab of gratitude. It wasn't that he wanted me. It was that he wanted cover. Then I felt guilty for the gratitude, a self-disgusted measuring harms against each other like produce. That evening, Warren texted Renee a photo of us three at the Azalea Easter, arms around waists, teeth like a false advertisement. "We can fix this," he wrote. "Don't throw me to wolves." Renee replied, "You raised the wolves." We filed for a protective order. We changed the locks. Ms. Patel sent a letter to the bank and CC'd the state. Sergeant Hall's team pulled the cloud footage from the frame's shadow account. The files told a story with timestamps and tiny sounds. Warren placing the frame, Warren adjusting it, Warren scrolling footage on the porch, and Warren muttering, "There she go," at a rectangle of light. On Thursday, Ms. Patel called with something that made my jaw ache from clenching. She said, "There's an insurance policy taken out on the house 8 months ago. The beneficiary is not Renee." A pause. "It's Warren's business entity." Renee laughed a noise that wasn't laughter. "He was going to burn me down. If not the house, then the marriage. Maybe both." We told Sergeant Hall. The investigation widened like a stain in water. On Friday, I found a note under my windshield wiper at school. "Leave before you break family." Sharpie, block letters, no signature. The paper smelled like cheap cologne and fear. Miss Francis from the front office walked me out with the little can of pepper spray she keeps in her desk for dogs. We pretended we were just admiring the sky. That night, Ms. Patel suggested we give Warren one chance to say his piece in a recorded setting with a meat eater. Sometimes they confess to the version of themselves they wish they were. We met in the fellowship hall at church because even disasters like good lighting. The room smelled like wax and coffee. The mediator did her calm thing. Warren arrived in a polo, like he was there for pickup basketball. He looked at me like I was a witness who hadn't learned my lines. He started with the store he knew. I flirted. He rebuffed. The cameras were for safety. The bank errors were the bank. The envelopes were vendor payments. The policy was standard. Then Renee slid the den frame across the table again like a communion tray with a different kind of wine. The mediator pressed play. Warren watched himself do the things he said he didn't do. He smiled the tired smile of a man caught with a hand in a jar in a speech about diet ready. "You edited that," he said. "It's the raw file," the mediator said, not unkind. He turned to me. "You like attention," he said. "Admit it." "I like safety," I said. "That's different." He spread his hands. "What do you want?" he asked, finally showing us the altar. Not apology, not understanding. A transaction. Renee leaned in. "I want my house back. I want my niece respected. I want you to put your mouth on truth for once." His eyes hardened. "Then I want a lawyer," he said. "Already got 3, Renee said. When a man's last power is stalling, how do you keep your foot on the gas without driving into the ditch with him?
The warrant came on a Monday that smelled like rain reheated. Sergeant Hall's team searched Warren's office and the back of his truck. They found a folder labeled Household 2 with printouts of our camera logs, passwords, and a receipt for 3 picture frame cameras purchased at a strip mall electronics store. They found paperwork for the line of credit and a copy of the insurance policy with Tate's initials in the margin. They found a burner phone with text to Mr. Lewis about timing and removing the old alarms. They did not find contrition. That lives somewhere else. Warren was arrested in the parking lot of a hardware store where he liked to talk loud about lumber. The news traveled faster than weather. Dolores called Renee crying and laughing. Deacon Harold texted prayer hand and eyes in the same message. Miss Evelyn left a plate of cookies on her stoop with a note, "Proud of you girls." In the courtroom, Warren wore a suit that looked like a costume now. The judge's voice had that polished marble sound. Charges, unlawful surveillance, identity misuse, fraud, harassment. His attorney tried to turn the camera into security and the line of credit into financial disagreements. Miss Patel turned them back into what they were. I spoke. My voice felt like a rope I had to hold with both hands. I told the court about the pantry, the porch, the door frame, the way a body learns to live smaller. I used the word boundary and didn't apologize. I watched the clerk write, watched the bailiff breathe, watched a woman in the back row nod like a hinge had just loosened in her chest. Renee spoke. She didn't cry. She said, "I was married to a man who made me doubt my eyes. I'm done with that." She held up the shoebox, Exhibit 12. The lid said evidence in her handwriting that leans left. The judge's mouth almost smiled. The woman I didn't know then, but now do, Asha, from Warren's vendor list, gave a statement by video. Her voice shook on "I thought I was the only one" and became iron on "I'm not." Tate took a deal. Mr. Lewis vanished for a week and then resurfaced with a lawyer and a haircut. When the judge issued the no-contact order and granted the temporary exclusive possession of the house to Renee, my knees wanted to sit even though I was already sitting. I felt the first real, clean breath since Collards and Storm. After court, Warren looked at us in the hallway like a man staring at a door that had been bricked up. "You'll regret this," he said, a line men say when the only tool left in their box is echo. I thought of my students and the way they look up when an adult tells the truth that costs. "Maybe," I said, "but I won't forget who I am." The rain outside had the good sense to stop. The air smelled like wet concrete and relief. Renee slid her arm through mine, and for the first time in months, the weight I felt on my shoulder was love without caveat. When a storm finally passes, is the quiet strange, or is it what the world sounded like before someone taught you to brace? The house changed its breath. We painted the den a new color, blue raincoat, because the swatch name made Renee laugh in a way that shook dust off corners. We replaced the smoke alarm, the hallway clock, the habit of apologizing for existing in a room. I moved my chain lower so I could lock it faster. We fixed the squeak in the back door. The lemons in the bowl went soft, and we let them. Not everything had to be useful to earn its keep right away. Miss Patel worked the slow miracle of paperwork. The bank agreed to restore the line of credit and investigate their own failures. The insurance company canceled the policy and sent a letter that used the phrase "material misrepresentation" with rare, satisfying precision. Sergeant Hall said the case would crawl. Court calendars move like old dogs. But that our part now was to keep breathing and keep our statements the same shape as they were the first time. True. At school, my kids taught me trending dances in the hallway and asked if I ever cried. I told them yes, and that crying is the body washing a hurt. Miss Francis started keeping 2 pepper sprays in her desk. Marley helped me hunt Craigslist for a couch that didn't smell like onions. We found one. It smelled like sun. Renee started Thursday dinners for the ladies on the block. Miss Evelyn with her stories, Dolores with her cake, Clarice with her gossip that was 60% accurate and 100% entertaining. We ate
and laughed and raised the kind of army that doesn't march so much as sit and refuses to be moved. Sometimes at night, a panic would snake under my skin anyway, a memory with teeth but no body. I'd lie awake and listen to the fan's new tick, quieter, as if it had decided to keep count less loudly. I'd think about Warren's little red camera eye, how it believed watching was the same as knowing. I'd think about my mother's kitchen and the way grief and love share a drawer. I'd get up, drink water that tasted like Atlanta Tap, chlorine, and home, and go back to bed. Renee's divorce papers arrived with staples, like tiny, neat decisions. She signed with a pen that had her name on it in cursive and said, "This is not how I thought I'd be free, but here we are." I said, "Here we are." What do you call the quiet after you refuse to carry someone else's lie another step? I think the word is space.
I used to think family was the house you inherit. Now I think it's the roof you refuse to let fall on your head. I used to think avoiding trouble was the same as keeping peace. Now I think peace tells its own truth, even if your voice shakes saying it. People always ask why women don't speak sooner. I have a list long as my arm. Because the rent is due, because you don't want to be the smoke in someone else's photo, because love makes you edit yourself until the plot breaks, because someone taught you apologizing is cute. I also have this, because sometimes you're still trying to decide if the thing that happened counts as a thing. And by the time you decide, the person who did it is already telling a better story. So here's mine. A man put a camera in a frame, and a hand on a jar, and a price on a house, and a rumor in a woman's ear. A woman chose to believe the person in her kitchen instead of the person in her doorway. Another woman, me, stopped being polite enough to make room for harm. I don't owe anyone my silence. I don't owe anyone my sweet. I owe myself sleep. And the kids at school the version of me who chose the hard thing so they can see what it looks like. The house is not perfect. Neither am I. But the doors open and shut because we want them to. And that's a kind of gospel. I didn't steal anyone's husband. I took back my name. And in the clean, ordinary air that's left, I can finally breathe like I live here.